Hello once again. This is Angela Murjani from Kasturba Gandhi College in Hyderabad, and I hope you will enjoy today's lesson, the objective of which is to make us more socially aware as responsible citizens of our great nation. Today we are going to do a poem by Sir Stephen Spender, an English poet, novelist and essayist who lived across most of the 20th century, having been born in 1907 and dying in 1995. The 20th century was an era of great technological and scientific change and innovation. Obviously, such change would dramatically affect the lives of people who lived in that time. And so it did. Some of these changes were good, but some of them were not so good. So it was left for people like Stephen Spender to bring out some of the grave social injustices and the anomalies that existed in the society of that time, and to help us to be more aware of such injustices that were being meted out to certain sections of society. Being a literary artist, Spender used his works, that's his poems and his essays and his novels, as tools or vehicles to draw attention or to focus on these wrongs that he felt needed to be righted in the society of his time. Spender attended University College, Oxford, where in 1973 he was made an honorary fellow. He left Oxford without completing his degree and subsequently lived periodically in Germany. He confessed of himself that he had never passed an exam in his life ever. His closest friend and the man who influenced him the most was W.H. Auden, also a great influential intellectual of his time. Much of Spender's early poetry, notably his compilation known as Poems, published in 1933, was often inspired by social anger. He was appointed the 17th Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry to the United States Library of Congress in 1965. Spender was later appointed Professor of English at University College London, and in the year 1983, he was knighted by the Queen. In the poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, Stephen Spender highlights the plight of children in a government-run school, depicting the kind of education that's doled out by the government to them. It's the sort of education that hardly does them any good, and on the contrary, it serves only to draw more attention to the deprivation and the sorry state of affairs that these children already find themselves in. While the government appears to be doing its bit, the relevance and the quality of what it is doing is highly questionable. Also, the general attitude of apathy on the part of the more privileged members of society towards those who are less privileged is very disturbing to Spender. Spender seems upset by both the government's mishandling of the situation as well as the indifference of the more privileged members of society towards those who really need the concern and the compassion of those who find themselves in positions of privilege. There is, according to Spender, a general insensitivity to the needs of the poor that definitely requires to be addressed, and that's exactly what Spender is trying to do in this particular poem. This poem is an eye-opener for us because it helps to throw light upon the plight of many children in state-run schools in our own nation who perhaps find themselves in the similar situation. Hopefully, it may motivate us to do something to alleviate those places of darkness and to bring the light which is in our lives into the lives of those slum children like the ones mentioned in Spender's poem. The poem is not a critique of education, but it definitely does seek to satirize and to criticize the mode in which education is sometimes delivered to those who are its recipients. often there is no thought given to adapting the system to the needs of those who are the primary stakeholders, and in this case, it is the students themselves. Spender believed that education must bring transformation and change to our lives, and if it does fail to do this, then there is